Story number 1, Stairwell B. I should have left at 6 like everyone else. Budget season always meant late nights, but I told myself it was temporary. Just 2 more weeks of reconciling quarterly reports, and I could go back to normal hours. The 14th floor was silent, except for the hum of the HVAC system and the occasional ping from my computer. By 9:30 on Thursday night, I was the last person in our department. I knew because I'd watched everyone else pack up and leave, their voices fading down the hallway toward the elevators. I saved my spreadsheet, locked my workstation, and grabbed my bag. The fluorescent lights in the corridor flickered as I walked toward Stairwell B. I always took the stairs. 14 floors down was good exercise, and I liked the quiet. The stairwell was mine at this hour. I pushed through the metal door and let it swing shut behind me. The air was cooler here, almost cold. I pressed the release bar on the emergency exit door. Green light. The magnetic lock should have disengaged. I pushed harder. Nothing. The door didn't move at all. I stepped back and looked at the light again. Definitely green. I tried once more, putting my shoulder into it. The bar depressed fully, but the door stayed shut like it was welded closed. It must be the system, I thought. They'd sent an email about maintenance updates this week. I didn't remember the details. I turned and started down the concrete stairs, my footsteps echoing in the narrow space. The 13th floor landing looked identical to the one above. Same gray walls, same red door, same small rectangular window. I was reaching for the release bar when I heard the door above me open and close. Footsteps. Slow and deliberate. A man appeared on the landing above, looking down at me through the gap in the railings. Gray coveralls. Building engineer, probably. He was maybe 50. With thinning hair and a radio clipped to his belt. Systems updating, he called down. His voice bounced off the concrete. Locks are cycling. I can escort you down if you want. I'm fine, I said. He didn't move. Just stood there, one hand on the railing, watching me. I couldn't see his eyes clearly in the dim stairwell lighting, but I felt them on me. Something about the way he stood there, not leaving, made my skin prickle. I turned away and pushed the release bar on the 13th floor door. Green light. The door didn't open. I tried again, forcing myself to stay calm. Still nothing. Told you? The man said from above. System update. I didn't answer. I started down to the 12th floor, moving a little faster now. Behind me, I heard his footsteps on the stairs, not following exactly, just descending at the same time I was, maintaining the same distance. 12. Green light. Locked. My heart was beating faster now. I told myself it was just the exercise, just the stairs. But my hands were shaking as I continued down to 11. His footsteps echoed above me. Steady metallic clicks on the concrete. They matched my pace. When I sped up, they sped up. When I paused at the 11th floor landing to try the door, they paused too. 11. Locked. 10. Locked. 9. Locked. I was moving faster now, taking the stairs 2 at a time, my bag bouncing against my hip. The footsteps above me accelerated, keeping perfect rhythm with mine. He was always exactly 3 flights up. I could hear him, but I couldn't see him when I looked back up the central shaft of the stairwell. 8. Green light. Locked. My breath was coming harder, not from exertion, from fear. This wasn't a system update. This wasn't normal. 7. I grabbed the release bar and pulled, pushed, rattled it. The green light mocked me. Then I heard his radio crackle, a voice distorted by static. Status on containment protocol for 14. Silence. His footsteps had stopped. Unit 4, respond. Do you have visual? I pressed myself against the wall, trying not to breathe too loud. Containment protocol. The words didn't make sense. I worked in auditing. I reconciled spreadsheets. What could possibly require containment? His footsteps started again. Faster now. Purposeful. 5. 4. The stairs blurred together. My shoes slapped against concrete, and the sound chased itself down the stairwell, mixing with his footsteps above me. Closer now. Definitely closer. At the 6th floor landing, I stopped. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the release bar. I already knew it wouldn't open. They were all locked. Every single door. And he was coming. I looked around wildly. Fire alarm. Red box on the wall. Glass front. Small hammer on a chain. I grabbed the hammer and smashed the glass. It shattered with a sound that seemed impossibly loud. I reached inside and pulled the alarm. Nothing happened. No siren. The system was disabled. But the glass was sharp. I used a shard to pry at the door release mechanism, my fingers slipping, cutting myself. Blood made the metal slippery. I could hear him now, his footsteps on the landing directly above me, the 7th floor, and then starting down toward 6. The mechanism gave way. Something inside the door clicked. I yanked it open, kicked off my right shoe, and wedged it in the gap. Then I slipped through into the darkened office floor and let the door close against the shoe, keeping it from latching. I ran into the darkness, past cubicles and conference rooms toward the other side of the building. There was another stairwell. There had to be. Behind me, I heard the door open. I found stairwell D and took it down, 6 floors in what felt like seconds, and burst out into the lobby. The security guard at the desk looked up, startled. I said. I told him everything. He looked skeptical until he checked the cameras. They reviewed 3 weeks of footage. The engineer had been there every time I worked late, positioning himself in stairwells when I took the stairs, in the parking garage when I left after dark, always watching, always at a distance. The system update had been manually triggered from his maintenance terminal at 9:47. 17 minutes after I entered stairwell B. Every magnetic lock in that stairwell had been remotely engaged. Every single one. They found him in the sub-basement. He didn't resist. I don't work late anymore. I leave at 5 with everyone else, and I take the elevator. But sometimes, when I'm alone in the office and I hear footsteps in the hallway, I stop what I'm doing and I listen. I wait to see if they stop when I stop. Usually they don't. Usually it's just someone walking by. But I always wait to be sure. Story number 2, Motel 6. I pulled into the Motel 6 off Interstate 40, around 3 in the morning. The hail damage claim in Holbrook had taken longer than expected, and I'd spent the last 2 hours driving through empty desert with my eyes burning. Flagstaff was still another hour north, and I couldn't do it. The motel sign glowed orange against the black sky, and that was enough. The night clerk barely looked up when I came in. Young guy, maybe mid-20s, with a thin face and hands that moved too slowly across the keyboard. He slid the keycard across the counter without making eye contact. Room 217. 2nd floor, end of the hall. I thanked him and walked back out into the parking lot. Only 3 other cars. The kind of place where truckers stop for 4 hours of sleep before pushing on to Albuquerque. The room smelled like industrial cleaner and old carpet. I dropped my bag on the bed and went to lock the door. That's when I noticed the chain. It was installed backwards. The slide bracket faced the hallway instead of the room. I stood there staring at it for a moment, trying to make sense of the configuration. Someone had mounted it in reverse, so the chain could only be fastened from outside. I told myself it must have been damaged. Previous guest probably yanked it too hard, ripped the screws out, and maintenance just flipped the hardware around as a temporary fix. It didn't make sense, but I was too tired to think about it. I turned the deadbolt and the handle lock and left it at that. I didn't bother undressing. Just kicked off my shoes and lay down on top of the bedspread with my phone alarm set for 7. The smoke woke me. Not thick enough to choke on, but present. Cigarette smoke, seeping under the door in slow waves. I sat up and checked my phone. 4:30, 8 in the morning. I'd been asleep less than 90 minutes. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. The night clerk was standing in the hallway. Just standing there, maybe 6 feet from my door, facing it directly. He wasn't smoking. His hands were at his sides, and in his right hand, he held a white plastic keycard. I watched him for a full minute. He didn't move. Didn't look at his phone or check a clipboard. Just stood there in the fluorescent hallway light, staring at my door. I stepped back. My heart was doing something it shouldn't. I told myself he was checking on a noise complaint or waiting for someone. Maybe another guest had called about the smoke. But the smoke was coming from under my door, from inside the hallway. Like someone was standing right outside, exhaling directly into the gap. I went to the window and pulled the curtain aside. He was there, standing on the pavement below, looking up at me. I let the curtain fall and stepped back so fast I hit the edge of the bed. My room was on the 2nd floor. There was no balcony, no exterior stairwell on this side. I'd walked past this section of the building on my way in. It was a straight drop to the parking lot. I pulled the curtain again, just an inch. He was still there. Same position. Same keycard in his hand. His face was tilted up toward my window, and even from the 2nd floor, I could see he wasn't blinking. I moved to the phone on the nightstand and picked it up. Dial tone. I pressed 9 for the front desk. The tone continued. No ring. Just the steady hum of an open line going nowhere. I hung up and tried again. Same thing. Dial tone, then nothing. I let it run for 10 seconds before the line cut off entirely, replaced by dead silence. I went back to the door and checked the peephole. The hallway was empty now. I turned both locks and pulled on the handle to make sure it was secure. Then I grabbed the desk chair and wedged it under the knob. It wasn't much, but it made me feel slightly less exposed. The cigarette smoke was still coming in. Thicker now, pooling near the floor in a low haze. I went into the bathroom and turned on the fan. The window above the toilet was small, maybe 2 feet wide, but it looked like it opened outward. I climbed onto the toilet lid and pushed. It didn't move. I pushed harder, putting my shoulder into it. The frame didn't budge. I ran my fingers along the seam and felt the paint. Thick, deliberate layers of white paint sealing the window to the frame. It had been painted shut from the outside. I got down and stood in the middle of the bathroom, trying to think. The phone didn't work. The window didn't open. The door chain was backwards. And the night clerk had been outside my 2nd floor window. I told myself there was an explanation. There had to be. Maybe he'd used a ladder. Maybe the phone line was damaged. Maybe I was tired and seeing things that weren't there. But I wasn't imagining the smoke. I went back into the main room and looked at the door. The chair was still wedged under the handle. I grabbed the dresser and dragged it across the carpet, shoving it against the door. It scraped loudly, but I didn't care. Then I saw the air conditioning unit. It was mounted below the window, a big rectangular box set into the wall. I knelt down and pried off the front grille. Behind it, the ductwork ran horizontally into the wall. wide enough for a person if they didn't mind tight spaces. I didn't have a choice. I pulled myself into the duct, using my elbows to drag forward. The metal was cold and sharp against my forearms. I could hear my own breathing echoing in the narrow space. After about 15 feet, I reached another grill. I kicked it loose and climbed out into room 219. The room was identical to mine. Same layout, same bedspread, same coffee stain on the nightstand. I stood there staring at the stain. It was in the exact same spot, same shape, same faded brown ring. I picked up the phone. Dial tone. I pressed 911. It rang. 911. What's your emergency? I'm at the Motel 6 off Interstate 40, room 217. Someone's trying to get into my room. The night clerk. He's been standing outside my door, and I think he has a key. There was a pause. Sir, you're calling from room 219. I climbed through the vent. I was in 217. That's where I checked in. Another pause, longer this time. Can you stay on the line? I'm dispatching an officer now. I said I would. I sat on the edge of the bed and waited, watching the door. The sun started coming up around 6. Orange light spilled through the gap in the curtains, and I heard a car start in the parking lot below. At 6:45, someone knocked. Police. I opened the door. 2 officers, both middle-aged, both looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. I told them everything. The backwards chain, the smoke, the clerk in the hallway, and outside my window. They listened without interrupting. When I finished, one of them asked to see my keycard. I handed it over. He looked at it, then at his partner. This is for room 217. I know. I climbed through the vent to get away from him. They walked me back downstairs. The day clerk was at the desk now, a woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a chain. The night clerk was gone. She pulled up my reservation on the computer. Room 217. Checked in 5 days ago. No. I checked in this morning. Around 3. She turned the monitor toward me. The reservation showed my name, my credit card, and a check in date of 4 days ago. 5 nights total, with tonight being the last. There must be a mistake, I said. She printed the receipt and handed it to me. My name, my card number. 5 consecutive nights. I looked at the officers. They looked at each other. One of them asked if I'd been drinking. I left an hour later. They didn't arrest me, but they made it clear I needed to go. I threw my bag in the car and pulled onto Interstate 40 heading north. I still have the receipt. I've looked at it maybe 100 times, trying to find the error, the glitch, the explanation. But the dates don't change. And I keep thinking about the coffee stain, the one in room 219, identical to the one in 217, like someone had been practicing. Story number 3, Tunnel Vision. I take the Broad Street line every morning at 7:45. Same car, same spot near the middle doors. I'm a physical therapist at a clinic in Center City, and the routine helps me wake up before my first patient at 9. That Tuesday started like any other. I had my coffee, my phone, my bag. The train was crowded but not packed. Rush hour in Philadelphia means you get a seat if you're lucky, and I was. We left City Hall Station and descended into the tunnel. The lights flickered the way they always do between stops. I was scrolling through my schedule when the train began to slow. Not the gradual deceleration of an approaching platform, but something abrupt, uneven. The brakes engaged with a metallic groan, and we stopped. Complete darkness outside the windows. Just the fluorescent interior lights and our reflection staring back. The intercom crackled. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a brief signal delay. We should be moving shortly. Thank you for your patience. The conductor's voice sounded routine. Bored. Even. I've heard that announcement a dozen times. Track maintenance, signal problems, trains ahead of us. It's never more than 5 minutes. I checked my phone. 7:52. I had time. Other passengers shifted in their seats. A man in a suit sighed loudly. A woman with headphones didn't even look up. I watched the tunnel, side window, seeing only my own face reflected against the black. I told myself it was fine. Just a delay. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. No updates. No crackling intercom. No movement. People started murmuring. The man in the suit stood and walked toward the operator's cabin at the front, peering through the small window in the door. He came back shaking his head. A teenager tried the emergency intercom button near the center doors, but I didn't hear anything happen. I checked my phone again. 8:03. I'd be late if this went on much longer, but I wasn't worried yet. I assumed someone was manually inspecting the tracks ahead. That's what they do when signals fail. They have to walk the line, check for obstructions, reset the system. It's slow, but it's safe. I looked at the window again. There was condensation on the glass. Not on my side. On the outside. A small circle of fog, like when you breathe on a mirror. It was there for a moment, then faded, then appeared again, slightly lower. I stared at it. My reflection stared back, but behind it, in that circle of condensation, I could see nothing. Just darkness. Just the tunnel. Warm breath makes condensation. I know that. But we were stopped in a subway tunnel. There shouldn't be anyone outside. I leaned closer to the window, cupping my hands around my eyes to block the interior light. The condensation appeared again. Bigger this time. Right at eye level. Someone was standing outside the train, breathing on the glass. My stomach tightened. I pulled back and looked around the car. No one else seemed to notice. The man in the suit was on his phone. The woman with headphones was still scrolling. A couple near the front was talking quietly. I looked at the window again. The condensation was gone. I stood up. My bag slipped off my lap and I caught it, slinging it over my shoulder. I walked toward the emergency intercom button, the red box mounted near the doors. I pressed it once, twice, held it down, static. Just static, no voice. No response. I pressed it again, harder, like that would make a difference. The static crackled, and underneath it I thought I heard something. Not words, just a low sound, rhythmic, like breathing. I let go of the button. Through the window beside me, I saw movement. A figure, walking slowly along the narrow maintenance walkway that runs beside the tracks. Wearing a maintenance uniform, orange vest, hard hat, reflective stripes catching the train's interior light. I watched him pass my window. He was moving toward the front of the train, his gait steady and unhurried. I tried to remember if anyone had gotten off when we stopped. The doors hadn't opened. I was sure of that. The doors never opened. So where did he come from? I told myself he was supposed to be there. He was maintenance. He was inspecting the track. That's why we stopped. That's why the conductor went silent. They were coordinating. This was normal, but my hands were shaking. The figure stopped. Directly outside the window, where I'd seen the condensation, he turned toward the train. I couldn't see his face. The hard hat brim cast a shadow, and the tunnel was too dark. But I could see his posture, the way he stood. He was looking at me. He reached toward the door. His hand moved to the manual release panel, the emergency mechanism that's supposed to be locked from the inside. I didn't think, I just moved. I ran toward the front of the train, pushing past the man in the suit. He said something, but I didn't hear it. I reached the door to the next car and shoved it open. stumbling through the rattling connector into the next section. The car was nearly empty. 2 people, both asleep or pretending to be. I kept moving. Through the next door, the next car. I could hear my own breathing, my heartbeat, the rhythmic clatter of my shoes on the floor. I reached the front car and saw the operator's cabin. The door was closed. I pounded on it. Hello? Hello, we need to move. There's someone outside. Nothing. I pressed my face to the small window in the door. The cabin was dark. I could see the controls, the radio, the empty chair. The microphone was hanging loose, swinging slightly on its coiled cord. No one was inside. The train lurched. I grabbed the handrail as we started moving, the sudden acceleration nearly knocking me down. The lights flickered. The tunnel began to slide past the windows, and within seconds we were at normal speed, the darkness giving way to the approaching glow of the next station. Race Street. We pulled in smoothly, like nothing had happened. The doors opened. I stepped onto the platform, my legs unsteady. Other passengers filed out, annoyed but unconcerned. The man in the suit brushed past me, already on his phone. I stood there, breathing hard, until I saw the transit police. 2 officers walking toward the train. I went to them. I told them everything. The stop, the silence, the figure outside, the empty cabin. They listened. One of them took notes. The other spoke into his radio. They asked me to wait. They walked down the platform, spoke to someone in the station office, then came back. Mom, there was scheduled track maintenance this morning. Junction box inspection between City Hall and Race. The work crew reported finding something. He held up a clear plastic bag. Inside was my employee badge. The one I wear at the clinic. The one with my name and photo. This was wedged inside the junction box panel, about halfway between the 2 stations. You know anything about that? I looked at the badge, then at my bag. I unzipped the front pocket where I always keep it. It was there, my badge, right where it always is. I looked at the bag in his hand again. Same photo, same name, same lamination crease in the corner. I don't know, I said. They asked me more questions. I answered as best I could. They took my information and said someone would follow up. I didn't take the train home that night. I walked. It took an hour. I still ride the Broad Street line. I still take the 745. But I don't sit near the windows anymore. And when the train stops between stations, even for a moment, I watch the doors. I keep checking my badge, making sure it's there, making sure it's real. I don't know what I saw in that tunnel. I don't know how my badge ended up in that junction box. But sometimes, when the train slows in the dark, I see condensation on the glass. And I know someone is still out there, breathing, waiting, watching which window I'm